Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the League of Inches podcast. Round 24 NRL review show. Plenty to discuss tonight. I got Trav along with me once again, and I've got Matt. What is it now? 3 or 4 weeks into it, so settling in very, very nicely. And we've got a heated show. We can tell this is starting to firm into the end of season because heaps of talking points. What I've tried to manage and make sure we do is talk about a lot of the teams in and around the 8 playing finals football, things like that. So obviously they're the teams that will be having the bigger talking points, but we'll touch on any of the other teams if there's any sort of talking points that we do need to touch on. So a loaded show, so much to discuss. Shout out to the Caxton Street Brewing Company. I believe many of you actually popped in there yesterday on Saturday for that Battle of the Brisbane. Unfortunately, we couldn't end up going. We were both a bit sick. Trav a bit more sick than I was. But unfortunately, it struck us down, which was very, very unfortunate. But by all reports, it was still a fantastic day, evening. Glad you all ended up going there. And look, we told you, the food and the drink there are delicious. So we will be there no matter what. Next couple of weeks, we'll organise something for sure. Shout out as well to all you guys basically getting around all the posts and stuff at the moment. Really do appreciate it. Some great friendly debate, majority of it, which we really do love. So I'm glad a lot of you are listening and getting involved with all that, which we all really, really do love to see. And that kicks us off with the first talking point for the night. We're actually going away a little bit from the games. We're going to talk about Payne Haas. And I'm going to go throw it out to you two, boy. Actually, before that, let me just check in. Let me see how the weekend was. Matty boy, how's your weekend, mate?
Yeah, pretty good. I worked on Saturday, so come home, watch a bit of footy, and then UFC today, which was all right until the main event. It got a bit boring, but
sport.
Yeah.
Trav, how's your weekend, mate?
Just resting. Unfortunately, went to the doctors on Friday and was told I've still got pneumonia. It hasn't gotten any better, so yeah, just dealing with this pneumonia and trying to get over it. To be fair, but yeah, the sun was out up here in Brisbane, and I laid out the towel and laid in it for a couple of hours to hopefully fry off some of these bloody germs. But otherwise, yeah, going all right, mate. And yourself? What about you,
mate? Pretty relaxed, to be honest. As I said, I wasn't feeling the greatest, so kept it quite low. Did a bit around the house, tried to get in the good books with the missus, so hopefully that worked. Who knows? Probably didn't. But we all know you just never do enough, do you? So I did a little bit relax on the lounge and that as well. Watched the footy. Some great games throughout the weekend. So it was actually a good weekend to be able to just sit there and get through some of these games. So very keen to get stuck into it. Payne Haas, as I mentioned earlier, has confirmed today he's switched to Samoa for the international side of things. That does mean he can still play for the New South Wales Blues at the moment. Samoa is a Tier 2 nation, which does mean you can do both. We see many players doing this now. In the comments, we've had a couple of posts around this. Obviously, the first one a few days ago when it was rumored that it was happening, and then today when it was confirmed and a quote from Payne himself. I'll shout out to you boys. I'll just quickly read out the quote he has said about this. So he goes, "There was a moment when I played for Australia when we versed Samoa in Townsville. The anthems were playing and my mind raced back to lots of memories with my mum and making us sing the national anthem of Samoa in the back of the car. I think from that moment onwards, I wanted to play for Samoa and represent my mum's side, the Tafua side, and really make them proud and my grandparents as well." I think that quote in itself, I find it very hard to justify or have a differing of an opinion of basically just saying I sort of agree and I actually like this happening. It strengthens the international game. Matt, I'll throw to you first, though. What are your opinions on this one? There is some out there that are a little bit divided, not entirely happy and thinks this should mean they don't play Origin. What are your thoughts?
I just think, if he wants to represent his heritage, then he should have every right to be able to do that. No one else is in his head. We don't know, or his heart. We don't know how he feels. If he has a strong connection to where his mum's from, then yeah, he should be allowed to play. You just touched on the Tafua side. So his uncle is actually George Tafua, Jorge Tafua from Manly back in the day, played the wing, and Mark Tafua. Their brothers, Mark Tafua played prop at Newcastle and played for Cronulla, 2010-ish sort of area. They both represented Samoa. George represented Tonga as well, represented both. But yeah, that's that side of the family. They've represented there. I think Payne is, he's been a good servant for the ARL, New South Wales Rugby League. He's played his part, and he should be allowed to play there. I'm glad he can still play Origin as well.
Yep. Trav, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's going to be a bit boring, this little pod between the three of us in this point, because I totally agree. I think it's very clear. Like I've been quite blessed since moving up to Brisbane the last 4 years to work in and around schools in the southeast or southern Brisbane, and have been able to get many perspectives and have many conversations with a lot of the island heritage families, a lot of kids, a lot of mums, a lot of dads having uncles and aunties and grandmas, grandpas and all sorts to really talk to them about not so much rugby league or not so much sport, but just how important culture is to them. And my eyes have been open and have been made to, and my perspective has changed enormously since having these conversations around how really important their culture is. And I'm very envious. I'm a very proud Australian, very proud Australian, but I don't have that full passion and love like the way that these guys talk about it's so commendable. And I from those conversations and that, like, just simply from personal perspective of personal conversations, I can't hold any grudge at all to any of these people wanting to go back. And just the slightest bits of, perspective, like I know someone who's got, I think it's only 1/8 of island heritage in them, but the fact is that they're surrounded in it. They have uncles and things like that are around them, that it's huge and it's a daily basis for them. And I love it. I have absolutely no grudge at all to him to do that. Obviously, it's buried deep down in his bones and his soul, and that's what he wants to do, and that's what he wants to to align with. I have no problems with it. I actually, and maybe this is going to be a little bit contentious, but I think we're at the verge of now getting rid of the tiered system. And we're not so much getting rid of the tiered system, but I think Samoa, Tonga, they can't be tier 2 teams anymore. And I think that needs to change. Those teams are loaded. And now that these teams are going to start, or these players are going to start announcing their allegiance to these countries, it's only going to continue to keep happening. More and more players, they're only going to get a lot better. So I think we need to change this tier system. How and what the role and effect of that is, I don't know yet. I haven't thought that far ahead, but yeah, I just think we need to start looking into that. Origin. Yeah, and that's going to be, but we have to look at that later on. And to be fair, I actually don't think it should affect Origin at all, to be honest. But yeah, that's another argument. That's another conversation.
The interesting part with the tiered side of things as well, I can see where you're going with that. I do somewhat agree. I think there needs to be a change in terms of which teams are considered tier 1 and tier 2, though. Like, because I feel like still there's countries like PNG who I think still need to be a tier 2 country. They're not quite ready to make that leap at the moment. Cook Islands, things like that, they're just not quite ready. But you look at someone like Samoa and Tonga, they do look like they are getting ready. I'd even say Fiji probably aren't. They just need to stay with a tier 2, because whenever they do versus those tier 1 teams, there's a huge golfing class where I feel like those Samoa and both Tonga are both ready, in my opinion, to take on the heavyweights on a yearly basis, which I'd personally love to see. The argument out there at the moment with some people unhappy with this is around the Origin side of things and how that is fair and how that impacts. I actually just feel like, and I've said it to a couple of those people, some of them messaged the page on Instagram, things like that today, but I had a really good conversation with a guy who had a different opinion and was actually really respectful. I really appreciate how he went about that conversation. I really enjoyed the conversation I had with him today. I hope he's listening to this. He'll know who he is. I'm yet to reply to you, but I'll get back to you soon. But he sort of was saying, what I made him aware of is that the NRL is growing now. We're not 20 years ago where there was not many Pacific Islanders playing this game as there is now. Now it's like 60, 70% are Islanders, and that's just growing by the year. Like, we're going to get to a stage, and it's fantastic, where it's like an 80, 85% ratio of Islanders playing this great game of ours in this elite code, which I think is a brilliant thing. And what I keep saying is they've got family history, say, in Samoa or Tonga, but they've grown up in New South Wales or Queensland. So they want to pay respect to both sides of the fence, because they've grown up in, let's say, like we used this example about a couple of months ago. To'o grew up in Mount Druitt. Luai grew up in Mount Druitt. So they really want to give back to that, where they grew up, the people they grew up with, where they went to schools, things like that. But they've also got family in Samoa, and they want to make sure that they give back to that, and because that means a hell of a lot to their families with them doing what they're doing. We can't take that away from these players.
Ola Kawatu, he's literally representing his postcode on his body. It's literally tattooed to him. So they feel a connection to the state that they play and where they play junior football, but they also feel it towards the heritage. So, yeah, I think, they represent hard. They play hard for New South Wales. They play hard for their country, and that's all we can ask of them.
Well, I mean, I could argue that they play hard for New South Wales, and they lost to Queensland this year. But I just wanted to throw a little cheeky dig in there. Go Queensland! But I think the point is such a good point. Like, there's so much more to them. Like, they have grown up in our system. They've grown up in our country. They are our citizens, or Australian citizens, but they're also got this heritage that's deep ingrained in their blood and their soul, and it's something that they live with every single day. And I don't have zero problems with any of them representing representing those states, as long as they meet the criteria for it. And at the moment, they all do. So I've got no problems with it. And to be fair, Joel, to sort of get to one of your points, I don't care where anyone comes from. If the game's better for it, and there's better quality games, and then we've got more players playing better quality, then I don't care where they're from. Really, let's go. Like, all I want is a good product and a good and good players on the park, and then we can manage.
Yeah, but we've got to be careful with that. We can't have like Englishmen coming and playing State of Origin.
Why?
Like Sam Burgess playing Origin would be ludicrous.
Oh no, that's different. That's different. Like he's not born here. He hasn't done anything here. That's completely different.
No, but like someone like Radley should be able to play New South Wales, even though he's now chosen to play England because he's born and grew up on the eastern
100%.
suburbs. It just seems
absolutely
ridiculous. So that's where, even when they do change the tier systems, if they end up doing that, that's why it shouldn't impact it, because by then we should just be open and saying, well, if you're born and you grew up in whatever state, you're allowed to play for that state as well as that international side. Because at the end of the day, guys, and look, those passionate Australian fans, I love it, but we also need the international game to continue to grow and continue to strengthen, because if it doesn't, we just won't grow this game whatsoever. We need the international scene to be strong. Some of the best over the last 5 years, some of the best games of rugby league atmosphere-wise has actually been international games, and they've involved either Samoa or Tonga each time. Like, this is where the game is going to, and we need to get on the back of it and actually support these guys doing this, because you know what? I think it'd be great for the game. And taking my Australian cap off, if we end up losing a few games in the next couple of years, like, I actually want to see someone else win the World Cup. Like, I know I'm a passionate Australian, but actually for the good of rugby league, I'd love to see one of these guys come through and win the World Cup. It'd be fantastic, and it'd be huge for the game. So,
no, I disagree. Go Australia. Well, I want Australia to win, so I can't be saying that. Diehard Aussie would like to win, but yes, competitiveness, absolutely. But if you look at the other sports, and I'm probably digressing here, but if you look at the other sports, like in the basketball in Australia has grown enormously in the last 20 years. Why? Because we wanted to be competitive on the international stage, so money got put into it. You know, you look at swimming, you look at athletics, you look at all these sports that are international. Australia are getting more and better, better and better and better, because we're starting to invest in it. We're doing things, and the Australians are getting better. This is one thing that needs to happen in the NRL. At the moment, we're dominant, so we're sort of complacent. It's hopefully that changes, and then we come back to, well, Australia just needs to start being better. Australians need to start being better, and then that way, then we can go from there.
I'd like to see eventually that we put a little bit less emphasis on a state-based competition. You know, if we are going to grow, like I do love Origin, but it might be controversial to say, but I think that it should be a bit more on the back burner, and the Kangaroos should be sort of at the forefront of Australian rugby league.
International should be priority.
Yeah, I believe
I agree.
so. Yeah.
I agree.
mean, there's an argument that they should use that. There is an argument that New South Wales or the Origin should be your tester, your trial and tester for the Australian stuff, which actually makes sense if you go down that track of international should be the priority. I actually agree. I would love to get to the point where that's actually, that is the be all and end all.
Yeah. Well, we're the only competition that does it. Don't get me started. So that's a whole nother point.
We'll get into that another day, another time. Shout out to Pub Talk, which will be coming back this year, guys. I'm happy to announce. So a bit more about that down the track. Very, very excited about that one. Warriors, New Zealand Warriors. Now, I'm starting to realize one thing about New Zealand Warriors fans. First of all, I absolutely love yous. I love what you do to this game. Goodness me, you're a passionate bunch, because as soon as you could say 20 good things about your team, which we have done here, and as soon as you say one controversial comment about your side, goodness me, you come. And I love it. I love the passion, but wow, so look, first of all, I will say this. On the weekend, you were not the better side. The Dragons, how they lost 3 players early for HIA, fought like they did during that game was unbelievable. That's one of the bravest efforts I've seen probably all year by any side, not just the Dragons, but they did deserve to win it. I was happy because I tipped the Warriors, but goodness me, that was very unfortunate. I felt for Flanagan and his Dragons in that game because they tried their asses off. For the Warriors, though, I'm going to make a big statement right now, boys, and it's ready for you guys to come back to me, either agree or disagree. The Warriors are a write-off this year. I think they're done and dusted. I did not like anything I've seen now for them for a few weeks now. I sort of given them a pass mark because there was no Wade Egan on top of their other injuries, which I thought was really big for them. Wade Egan's massive for this side. They couldn't put away a side that was depleted on the weekend with fresh injuries during the game. Like that game, they should have won that. I know the Dragons were brave, and credit to them. That was a great effort, but the Warriors should have won that by a lot more than they did and earlier than they did. That should not have been a contest for as long as it was. Trav, agree or disagree?
I agree, but I'm not as blunt and as brutal as kind of I think your tone is in that, if that makes sense. But I never really had them. And even when they've been in the top 4, and I mean, they're 4th now. But even whilst they were comfortably entrenched in the top 4, I never really had them as a contender. I really enjoyed them being there, and I loved the footy that I was enjoying them playing. And Metcalf was a big deal and a big factor in that, but I've never really had them as a contender. So I'm not going to brutally write them off like you are right now, but I get the point that you're saying, though. 5 wins, 6 losses from round 12. I mean, that's pretty poor. Some of those losses are bad. That they're the worst by 50 points in the top 8 for points for. So their attacking power is not great. Got 437 points. The next best team is, the next closest team is 486, and then everyone else is comfortably in 500, and they're the Dogs. And the Dogs, we know why. I mean, they're built around their defense, so that's why you can understand that their point differential is there, but they're 50 points away, or 49 if you want to be exact. And then defensively, they've got 425 points against it, which is the 4th worst. So they're 4th in the top 8. So they're just not there. Like points for and against just doesn't support them at this point in time. I just think they're a little bit young. But they're batting above their average, and I like that they're in 4th. Sometimes, though, and I will say this, and I'll end it on this, Matt, and then you can go. But sometimes you do just have to win dirty. You do have to just win some of those dog games, and this kind of sounded a bit like it. Like, these better teams just win these games, and that was kind of one of those ones. Like, I get what you're saying, but and they were poor on the weekend, and the Dragons looked good, and they had those 3 injuries. But sometimes you just got to get away and get those wins, and that's what it looked like.
just on that 5 and 6 record you spoke about, just want to point out as well, one of those 5 was that get out of jail free code they used at Newcastle, where Halasima scored that freakish try right at the very end of the game, which was crazy. So, absolutely crazy. Matty boy, agree or disagree? Warriors are a write-off this year.
Yeah, they are. They're not going to win the comp, so I guess you'd have to say that.
He doesn't want to be brutal.
Well, it's hard to be because how many key injuries they've had this year. Like a lot of stuff hasn't sort of played out. The season hasn't been particularly nice to the Warriors. I think that's probably a fair statement as well. By round 10, they'd only had, I think it was 1 loss, 1 bye, or maybe 2 losses, a bye, and 7 wins. So they started off really nicely. Losing Metcalf, he was sort of steering them pretty nicely. Fisher Harris hurt during the year, and just based on the game last night, what was it? Friday night, sorry. It was 6 o'clock Friday. They just look so frustrated. James Fisher Harris doing leg lifts and just silly shit that he's better than that. They look frustrated. And I think they want the season to finish. Yeah, I think they want it to be all over.
I think they also, like, in-house, I reckon they'll be in 2 minds here, because they'll be, like you said, and rightly said, they're probably very frustrated at the moment because 6 weeks ago, just before obviously the Metcalf injury happened, they were still looking really, really good. Like, they looked like they dead set deserved that top 4 berth. And if they could, and most people were saying, if they could get 2 home games at New Zealand in the final series, well, good luck. The momentum that they'll get will just be absolutely crazy. But then you go the other side of the fence, and they're probably telling themselves, let's keep going, let's stick in this. We can get this, we can get out of here and get this competition still. But the football I've seen over the last probably month or so, it's just been extremely disappointing. Not taking anything away from the losses injury wise, I do get that. So I'm very unfortunate. There's probably many out there saying, crying because their teams probably had a worse injury run, things like that as well, which I do get as well. I feel the reason why I'm probably being a bit more blunt is because we are getting close to finals football. We are starting to put our necks out a little bit with teams that we feel like are dead set in the fight, and some aren't. And unfortunately, I just think while we're seeing some of these big guns start to really flex their muscles, the Warriors just have been declining almost weekly lately. And I just think, it's if the Dragons didn't lose the players they did, the Dragons would have won that 13+, which is the real worry for New Zealand, because that was over at home as well. Like, that was an emotional game. They had the pre-game ritual, which was amazing. Shout out to all the Kiwis over there that organised all that. That was absolutely phenomenal. Shout out to the Warriors. But there's just a number of very worrying signs at the moment, unfortunately, for the Warriors. Moving on, and this one will probably make Trav smile a lot, because one of his players features in this conversation. Xavier Coates and Daniel Tupou, you're both dead set cheat codes at the moment. And obviously what we're talking about is in the air. It's almost impossible to stop either of these players scoring tries. This is a huge advantage for both the Melbourne Storm and the Sydney Roosters, not just at the moment, but come finals time, because it's feeling like it's harder and harder at the moment, and to the point where it's almost impossible to stop this. And I actually respect the NRL for this, because they've made it, and they're starting to crack down a lot on taking out these runners as they're going in to catch the ball, which I'm loving. I think if you've got these athletes who are so good, and they train this stuff every week, who can commit and do such a great job on this, they deserve to be able to score these tries. They deserve to have this cheat code. I think it's remarkable for them. For the Rooster side of things, the Bulldogs were... They should have changed their coaching a little bit there, because they should have swapped their wingers around. I don't think it may have prevented all of it, but I reckon Kraz probably would have put up a much better fight than Tuala was doing. Yeah, that was just a total mismatch. And Xavier Coates, obviously, Toe. He's a fantastic winger, but his big Achilles heel, and we've seen it time and time again now, and in Origin, is the high ball, unfortunately. So I even feel like maybe Jenkins to go over that side early on would have been the better play. But hey, I'm not a first grade coach. One other thing I say before I throw to you guys, just to outline how good these two are doing what they're doing. everyone raves about Lomax, and I'm a massive Para fan. Everyone knows that. But his half-assed efforts shows to me and makes me appreciate and respect so much more what these two guys are doing in the air. They're going up, they're committing every single time, 2 hands behind the ball, body in great positions. They're not going up just going, oh, yeah, half-assed sort of efforts and one arm up in the air. Let's see if I can get something. No, they're going up and they're competing and they're getting it done each time. I'll let Trav go first with this one. I'm letting him just go and fanboy moment first of all, and then he can get into it.
Oh, I get to fanboy every weekend as I watch the Coats. And to be fair, I actually think that we should do it so much more often. Like it is a cheat code, and these guys are changing the way the competition is. Like to be that tall and have that much of a weapon and be that much of a weapon is just unreal. And the Storm are blessed because we got Warbrick on the other side when he gets back from his concussion, who's not as good as Coates in the air, but he's still pretty bloody good. So, like as a Storm fan, I love it. But just as an NRL fan, I actually love it. I love the screamers. I love what they do. I love the balls and the guts for these guys, the courage to want to do this, because there's potential for them to get absolutely flogged. And there's also potential for them to do it to others as well. So like, I think we underappreciate just how bloody hard it is. And we've got people like the Cleary boys and that trying to, plead their cases so that they can get away with some calls and things like that. But these guys make it look easy, and it's not. To be able to run like they do with the speed that they've got to have, with the athleticism that you need to have, but then to be looking up and not in front of you and not realize what's actually there is just amazing. And then to be able to do it like they do, like the one that Coates did on the weekend where he didn't quite get there, realized he wasn't quite there, but knew that he knew he was there, puts the left hand up, taps it back, Joe Chan gets it and tries. Like, that's just sick. Like, it's if I'm not going to get it, someone else is gonna. And that's the mentality that he's got, which is what you're pissed off about Lomax about. Like, if I'm not going to score here, someone else will. And that's just amazing to be able to do that. And then obviously it's practice, because the players around them know that I need to get my ass to that ball play. I need to get my ass to that bloody catch, because if Coates doesn't catch this, I'm going to be there for a tap. Like, so I've got it. It's such a good skill. I know you're going to ask how we stop it, so I might stop there and let Matty talk.
Yeah, I'll let Matty kick this off. Now, we're obviously not first grade coaches, and there's many first grade coaches out there so far who have not been able to do this. So this could be a very hard question to answer, but talk to us, Matty. How would you be stopping this, knowing full well right now there's a massive crackdown on this in terms of the referees are on the lookout for all these little obstructions and things like that. So tell us, how are you doing it?
Here's my answer. The kicks, they're for the most part, they're end over end, and they've got a fair bit of hang time, right? They have to, because we need the winger to be able to run onto it and get it. They're on a big advantage, the attacking side, because they get to run onto the ball and they have the momentum.
Yep.
We see the centres stand and have sort of a weakish sort of attempt at blocking, but they sort of just stand still right in front, which gives the ability to still be jumped over. My thought, why can't the centre treat it like a line out in Union, where the winger gets the spot, it's hanging there, and he can lift him. He can lift him up. That's my thought. I don't know if it's legal or not, but the ball, it stays in the spot for so long. I don't think it would be impossible to do. I know it sounds funny, but I honestly think that could work. That
went somewhere. That took a right turn at the point of the story where I thought you were going somewhere else with it. I thought you were about to say like the winger drops all the way back to like the dead ball line, and then they can sort of meet at the try line and sort of both have momentum, that sort of thing.
There is that point, but I see that I thought about that, and the problem is that if they stand back near the dead ball, then the backline play is just on. So they're going to play it short, I believe. So you could maybe stop the option of taking the kick, maybe, and then they spot that they've got the overlap. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of variables there. Yeah. Well, no, that's for sure a play as well. I don't know. no one can stop it at the moment. So I'd like
I
to
don't
see
know if Trav
someone
want to
try
answer
something.
this question, because then there'll be some coaches out there that are listening going, all right, we'll exploit this in the final series. But do you care to share how you'd stop Coates in the air, Trav?
No, because I actually
Well,
like
moving
watching
on.
it. I like watching Nanai. I like what he does. I like watching Katoa, Ali Katoa, what he does on the edges there. I like watching Coates do it. I love watching Tupou on the weekend and what he's doing. So no, I don't want them to stop it. And to be fair, it doesn't happen that bloody often. And there's not that many 6'6" athletes like these boys that are doing it. So like, why are we? Because these guys are so good at it, why are we trying to stop it? Like, we're not sitting there trying to find ways to stop Payne Haas and amend the rules and do things to stop Payne Haas. He's just a freaking freak. And unfortunately, you just got to get 3 or 4 guys to stop him. So I'm not looking for a rule or anything that needs to change.
No.
What I think, I understand I've said this a few times, and you're right, Matt, and you knocked it on the head, really. It's really hard for the defending winger to get it because they have the advantage. The attacker has the advantage of being able to run onto it, right?
Momentum,
and
yeah.
the defend, and it's momentum. And I can jump a hell of a lot higher and further than you can when I'm on the run to what you can of a standing jump. It's you're not going to be so. You know, the defenders really, you've got to decide, like when you're playing against Coates and Tupou, you're going to have to step back a little bit further. You're just going to have to sacrifice that. And then you just got to be quick. So you've got to be able to find a way to be quick and go, well, if you do play me out or fake me out and you don't kick it on top, I've got to be able to make up that 10 meters that I've gone backwards to get up here so that I can get to the line. So you just got to be able to, you really just got to sacrifice and just take the gutsy play and try to do it. In terms of how can Toto stop Coates in the air, I think really the only thing that Coates can do is if he gets up in the air, because we've seen teams stay down and you can't do that to Coates because he's going to get up and then he literally in the air has the ability to be able to put the ball, grab it, put it wherever he feels like it, land where he wants to, and then place his body around so that he knows that he can twist and get the ball grounded. And Tupou did that really well on the weekend too. So you can't just sit there and watch him go and get it and then wait to get him down and tackle him. You can't do that. So Tupou really is just going to have to, you're either going to have to change, put your center on the outside and put your wingers in the sit and do that so that you've got some height there. You're going to have to either put your edge back rower there out there and try and compete against that, or you're just going to have to sacrifice your body in the air and actually go and try and get it and meet him and collide in the middle and actually attempt to do it. And this is where, and make it hard for him to do it and actually put the pressure on the refs to go, did he actually go for the ball or was he just trying to collide and put that back on the ref to decide? And that's okay, because that's only going to happen a few times. And I think that's really the only thing you can do. And we're blessed at the moment that we've got, we've got game-defining, game-changing wingers that are going to define the position moving forward, and I think that's a great thing.
They're, at the end of the day, they're the best in the business of what they do. I find it almost very hard or almost impossible to stop these guys when they are on doing it, and we both seen that on the weekend. Talking about best in the business, quickly shout out to Sava Sports as well for all our merch. These guys are the best in the business of what they do. Our apparel sponsor. You see the jumper there on Trav. You see the hat on myself. Collar shirts, podcast shirts. You can purchase all this sort of stuff, guys. You've got Rocks in Your Head shirts as well. Just message the page and we'll get that organized for you. You order it, you get it within the next week or two as well. Sydney Roosters are on.
Joel, stop for a sec. Have you got a suggestion? What's your thoughts?
To stop it? Well, my one's actually just have the winger go back on. Like if it's, we're obviously talking about when it's the online. I'd have him drop back. Obviously, if it's short side, it's very hard to do that. So, but if it's a bit more on the other side of the field, I have them definitely drop back. It's only a 10-meter corridor they need to make up for to make that tackle in defense. And most sides are pretty good at sliding defense now as well. So if they're going short side, majority of the time, the other side of the field, they should be coming over a bit anyway and sort of plugging in that gap to have it so you can cover that. So I'd be having my winger just drop back and just there's a lot of the wingers there that are still trying to catch the ball. I'd give up on trying to attempt to catch the ball. I'd just hit it out and go, let's just start again. defend the set. Let's hope for a mistake or something like that. Just in my head, I'd be telling my wingers if I was versing Coates or Tupou, get out of your head catching this ball. It's not going to happen. I want you to just to belt the crap out of it. I want you to just to punch it somewhere, and away we go. That would be all my thinking was behind it.
The old AFL spoiler, like the punch is something that they do it. Like, that's just perfect. And that would fit. Like, you know, that would work out. The other thing you could do is start looking at the NFL. I suppose the difference in the NFL to here is that they're allowed to kind of hit hard. So there's, you know, a lot of the defenders in the NFL actually try to just hit the body instead of going for the ball. But that there is some things that they're changing over there that they do in terms of arm hitment and stuff like that. Like we're probably going to have to look at those types of things and change the thought pattern.
One thing out there, there's a lot of very smart coaches in our game, and no doubt they're already sitting down trying to work out what to do, because all those big teams that are in the finals this year would not want to be losing a grand final to 2 or 3 Coates or Tupou tries, that's for sure. So they'll be out there trying to work out plans for that. And then counter that, Robinson and Bellamy would be trying to work out ways to counteract that. That's just how good these guys are. It's a great little battle chess game that we'll witness over the next month or two. Cleary already started that with putting some things into the media, which was very, very clever by him. Hasn't helped him this time, but might help him down the track. The Sydney Roosters are on fire. I reckon they're looking odds on to make the top 8 now. And we spoke about a little bit last week's Wednesday live show that they're a team that probably don't want to be playing in the finals with some of their big guns starting to fire. Something that happened in this game, though, which has just made a lot of us absolutely puzzled. Hugo Savala was concussed. I'm going to say that now. And we all watched it on the replay. His eyes rolled to the back of his head. He went down. He was limp for what appeared to be probably 2 or so seconds, 3 seconds. Got up, sort of shook it out and just went, "No, I'm all good." Knew exactly what was going to come his way. And I'm good, play on. I don't know, and I'm not going to question these doctors, medical staff, things like that. I don't want to get us in trouble. But what I'm going to question is, how can us at home sit here with no medical degrees and say, okay, this guy has clearly needs to go for a HIA. He's been concussed. Yet these guys can then come up with what they say. Where's the NRL so far come out since this has happened? This is on Friday to then question or say we're onto this at the moment. Obviously, the game day officials, or the doctor, independent doctor, or the Sydney Roosters doctor, we are going to be questioning just to see what's happened, what the process was there. Because to any blind man and his dog watching that one, that was just I feel like that was one of the clearest ones we've seen for a while now. And for him I kept sitting there waiting. I go, Hugo's going to go off in a minute. This could be a bit of a momentum changer here for the Bulldogs. They lose a guy that's really helping Sam Walker, and he's off potentially. Like the way he fell and hit his head and was out. If he went off, I was actually questioning if he'd come back onto the game. That's how bad I thought it was. So I'm just absolutely amazed, Matt, that he just continued to stay on the field. Like we got to, I think it was 15, 20 minutes later, I'm going, hang on a second, Hugo's still on the field. Like what's going on here? Was it as perplexing to you as it was to me?
It was. And as you're saying, I just put Hugo Savala HIA into Google just through the news, just to see if maybe something had popped up. As you're saying, is the NRL going to address it? They still haven't addressed anything, which I just find bizarre. Not just for the independent doctor to miss, but Roosters should have a duty of care for their players, which, I'm more than happy to bag the Roosters, but they do normally do a pretty good job of this, of looking after their players when it comes to concussion, forcing Radley to rest. They did the same, easing Cordner into retirement.
Probably the best in the comp.
They've got a good track record at this. So this is a real, maybe they've just made a fumble here, and this is just an honest mistake, I'd like to think. And I don't know what else you can say. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, but Roosters are normally quite, good at looking after their players, and this is sort of against their character as a club.
Had some of our group chats a bit up in arms, mainly our League of Interest one, Trav. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, look, it's not a good look. It's pretty crappy, to be fair. And actually, I'll give another example. Tino had the same thing. when the same sort of type of incident got hit, and there was a lot of people questioning why he's not been taken off. I think what sort of gets me is that the clubs often, like, everyone knows, like we know, like I'm not a medical person, so I can just see the comments. The comments are going to come back saying, "Oh, you boys, you're not medical people, you're not doctors. How would you know?" Blah 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 blah. And I get it. I know this is going to come, but either way, we all sat there watching. We weren't the ones that started the conversation. The people in our group, and the 60 of them, started that conversation, and they saw between the two of them what exactly had happened, and are sitting there. And then the next point was, why is the independent doctor not saying anything here? But the next point after that was, why do we even have to wait for the independent doctors? Like, the clubs know, so they should know. But what happens is the clubs are waiting. Like, they're sitting there going, so as much as we talk around how good some of these guys are, and we know Roosters have a great track record, but they wait for it, right? This is why the independent doctor always has to come in. This is why we have stoppages. It's almost like they're hoping for that stoppage to stop the game, kind of thing. Like, clubs are waiting for these guys for the doctors to come through because they want to push their luck. And that's frustrating. I don't like that myself. And I don't like what I saw on the weekend. I clearly saw Savala in a bad way. And look, to be fair, he actually shook it off and played a pretty good game. But, you know, like, we'll go and have his 10, 15 minutes off and then come back. At least then we know that he's fine. He's healthy. He's right. He's done the test, and then we're all good for that. I didn't like what I saw on the weekend between the two of them. And I think some questions need to be asked. Absolutely.
Concussion doesn't stop you from playing football. Like, if we look at Robbie O'Davis back in the day before there was concussion protocol, one of the toughest blokes out there, he would get knocked about senseless. He talks about seeing stars every time he played. And now he's really struggling with some brain issues as well, Rob, who's champion of the game, legend. We've got to look, you know, you get one brain. If you go limp, that is a clear sign of concussion, which I thought was an instant HIA, you know, do your 15 minutes. Yeah. So they've gone, really against how they have been taking, you know, this sort of stuff real seriously with CTE and whatnot. And that's what we're trying to get rid of. So,
that's the thing that grinds my gears the most out of all this. And it's a point that Trav was making a bit earlier, is the fact that as a game, we've been so big on this for a while now, and we've all applauded the stance that the NRL has started to take on this, and that how serious it appears that they are taking it. But there's been little instances popping up more and more, I've noticed over the last few weeks, where, like Trav said, there's a player that we can clearly see isn't quite there, but the trainer goes there, stops him, has a chat to him or whatever, continues to let him play, which I just feel is sending the complete wrong message of what we're trying to do here as a game and protect these players. Like, I really do feel like, and it happened last week when we saw Jake's one, which was horrible to see. I actually felt like there was a point there where that trainer was going to let Jake go back to the defensive line. It took Turbo to run over to him and go, Jake, get the F off the field, basically. Go. And like, that's sick. That should not be happening. And it really needs to get to a point where the NRL needs to sit down with every single club at the moment and go, we need to take this a lot more seriously than it currently are. Like, we've made some leaps, which is awesome, but we really need to now start really getting the screws and screwing them really tight, because this is a serious matter. And this isn't questioning any of the guys. We know every single league player out there is a tough man. Like, they are the toughest of tough. No one's questioning that, but we need to start protecting them for their own good. Like you said, Matt, like Robbie O'Davis, unfortunately, like I've heard him talk and stuff, and it's not fantastic. Like, he's very much copying it and feeling it, the effects of it. And that was at a time where we weren't able to protect these players. We now are at a stage where we can. We had a massive debate last week about what are these trainers doing. Most clubs have 4 or 5 trainers on the field basically at certain times. What are they doing? Well, here's a point where they can actually do their jobs and protect these players from their own good. Like, they'll all sit there and say, I want to stay on the field, but we need to start getting these players off a lot quicker than we are.
You got to protect the players from themselves. I think maybe a good a good thing to maybe bring in is maybe we look at extending the bench a bit. 4-man bench just seems a bit outdated. Just for what the game is now, we've got way less interchanges than ever. We've got things like HIAs and whatever. I think that a team like the Dragons the other night,
3.
You know, back in the 90s, those players would have just got back up and played. I know that sounds fucked up, but that's what would have happened. We're not there anymore. Extend the bench, and I think that there'll be less pressure on them to take players off because, you know, they've got someone to cover.
Yeah. I'm not sold on the extending the bench, but I am definitely sold on having HIA cover. And I think the rules of that entirely needs to change. I don't like it at the moment. I think that needs to change. I don't like, it's 8. It's capped at 8, isn't it, for interchanges? So you got 4 and you're capped at 8. I think we need to have more. So I think 4 is fine, but 12, even more interchanges would be good. But but then you need to have a better HIA cover.
Well,
but the HIA is free interchanges at the moment, so they don't actually eat into the 8. So it's 8 just normal interchanges, which I think's actually, to be fair, I actually think there's too many.
Too many. I agree.
Everyone's getting fitter and fitter. I don't like that part of it, and this could be a debate that goes on forever. But one thing I'll also say on this is the fact that we're talking about the HIAs, and I have noticed this, and I think I heard a few of the podcasts last week. Some of the journos were talking about the NRL starting to look into a few clubs that are starting to exploit this a little bit too much. There is some teams that players aren't. We talk about one spectrum, and then the other side, unfortunately, where clubs are taking advantage of it. They're getting free interchanges for 15 minutes, which turns into 2 free interchanges. There was a study where there's some teams out there getting 14 or so interchanges during games because of how they're doing all this, which just isn't right. Like, we need to get to a point where we're fair income about this. This is concussion. This is the brain. Let's not take advantage of this shit. And the NRL needs to sit down with club CEOs and really get serious about this and start finding clubs who are doing this, because that's not right.
Yeah, and there's more to it too. Like, this whole thing is clubs and players have found loopholes. So now they 100% stay down. So they pretend that they've got a much worse hit. Wait for the penalty. Wait for the bunker to jump in. A penalty comes in because they're looking for the penalty. Like, there's a whole heap of loop-on effects that they're all just taking the piss out of head knocks and things like that because they're looking for it. And I just don't like the system at the moment. I think there needs to be some changes. But I think you're right, exactly. The NRL needs to sit down with the clubs and say this shit needs to stop. Like, you're taking the piss out of the CTA and the problems with the medical issues that can happen because you're looking for penalties, you're looking for free interchanges, you're looking for this. Stop finding these loopholes and get shit done and do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Spot on. Let's move on because there is a heap more topics to talk about, and there's going to be some more debates coming up. And this is, we promised it was a loaded show, and I want to make sure we get to them. The Bulldogs. We're back to talking about the Bulldogs after a very, very disappointing game on the weekend, to the point where there was many passionate Doggies fans and pages out there that were actually commenting on things and talking to us about some things going, this wasn't a good performance. You know, it is legit concern when they're actually going, you know what, we'll lay down for this one and go, this wasn't one to be proud of. So there's a few avenues to go about this. Firstly, I want to sort of talk about the fact that the Bulldogs, and I'm going to ask a broad question. Let's see where you guys lead this. Are the Bulldogs self-imploding, or are they simply running out of steam similar to last year? Trav, the Bulldogs, they're looking a shadow of a side they were 10, 12 weeks ago. What's happening?
I don't think either of those are the right answer. I don't think they've run out of steam. I think they're doing okay. I mean, we sat there speaking about them last week. They finally found their form. You know, they can win in the wet, like they've been able to do it because they gave the Warriors a bit of a touch up, and we spoke our praise. And then they turned up on the weekend to a high flying Roosters team and basically got made look like a second class team. So I don't think that they run out of steam. Are they self-imploding? I don't think self-imploding is the right answer either. I don't have an analogy. I don't have a one-liner. I don't have a word to sort of to fit in there. I just think a few things have gone against them. I think some poor coaching decisions have gone against them in terms of what happened with Galvin. And the narrative around Galvin has changed. Like, we all spoke about how bad it was going to be and what they did. And then he had those 3 good games. And we all spoke about how good Galvin is and how good he is for the club. And then he's had a couple of, not so good ones. And we're all talking about that. Then he's gone along and made some bad decisions about the best hooker in that team. And that's Marnie. And he's only playing 20 odd minutes. And so I think there's some bad decisions. But I think Serraldo actually, in my opinion, I liked what I saw from his press conference, how he turned around and goes, yep, I've made some coaching decisions. It's not been right, but I've also carried some players that are not training. It's not going to happen anymore. So I think there's some decisions there that's going to be big. And I'm actually really concerned as a Storm fan on the weekend around what's going to happen as a Storm fan coming up this weekend, because we play the Bulldogs and I reckon they're going to be fit, ready and go. And there's going to be a coaching blast. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So yeah, I don't think they're self-imploding. I think they've made some bad decisions. Because to me, if you're saying self-imploding, that means that they're done. That's how I read that word. So I don't think they're done. I think they need to fix a few decisions and make some hard decisions now and go, actually, we stuffed up here. We need to bring these guys back and just go back to what we were doing. And I don't think they've run out of steam. I think they're still thereabouts.
Yeah, you have a quick little discussion about what's to come for you guys, and that's a cracking game on Friday. I'm letting every rugby league fan out there know right now, make sure you block Friday night out, because there is 2 absolute cracking games of footy coming up that you all want to be sitting there at your TV to watch, because I think it's 4 teams in the top 5, so Penrith just outside.
Oh, yeah.
And then, it is absolutely fantastic. It'll be 2 of the best games, I reckon, all year. So make sure back to back, we are absolutely getting the best of it as league fans. But what I mean by self-imploding is the Bulldogs they've made some big decisions. Obviously the Galvin one, I look back on that, and he did start to get into his straps somewhat and look to be playing some decent footy. Still seems a little bit erratic for what the Bulldogs like, and I think they have been impacting that there. But I feel like the fact that he didn't have to earn his spot in this team at the time when they signed him, they were winning the competition. I just feel like as a group and as a club, you don't let a teenager still at the time, I'm pretty sure he was a teenager still, just walk into your premiership potentially winning side who was at the time leading the competition. I just think that sends the wrong message to the entire playing group. And then you've obviously read Marnie, that all happened. There was news about the fact that they want Bailey Haywood there for next year. That's what they've prioritised, which has ended up happening with Marnie leaving to the Cowboys. But why would you do that now? Like, there was a couple of people that messaged us and stuff and made really good points. Like, Marnie's their best hooker at the club right now. Why would you go ahead and try and change that to look into next year? Like, next year isn't like, yes, they're probably stronger next year. I think everyone can see that, but that doesn't necessarily mean you'll win the comp. You still got teams like Penrith who look like they're going to be just as strong next year, not losing anyone of note at the moment. Got the Storm who will be just as strong next year. You'll still have the Raiders just as strong next year. That just because you've got 1 or 2 extra forwards not coming next year doesn't entirely mean you'll win the comp next year. Like, live in the now is what I'm trying to say at the moment with the Bulldogs. Don't overthink and go, yep, let's keep planning for next year and put all our eggs in that basket. Who knows? We've seen some of the clubs this year. South Sydney, many had South Sydney as probably a top 6 side this year. Look what's happened to them. Absolutely decimated with injuries, have not had any luck at all, and they're fighting to offer wooden spoon. Who's to say that couldn't happen at the Dogs next year? So go all in for this year while you've got a chance, a really great side who are winning the comp for so long. Go and win the bloody comp. Like, you've got a great chance this year to win the comp. Matt, what's your answer to this? Are they imploding or are they running out of steam?
I'd agree with Trav. I think a few of the coaching decisions have been pretty poor. The rush to put Galvin in, I don't get why we're talking about him so much. I think he's got potential to be good, but just in the time that you were talking there, I've written down some names of halves that are way better than Galvin. So I've got Cleary, Reynolds, Walker, Hughes, DCE, Dearden, Hunt, Katoa, Moses. Just instantly, I rate them all more than Galvin. I don't get why he gets such a, like, there's such a sort of a highlight on him.
Is Sexton better?
He's more what he's for the Bulldogs. I think he's better. Yes, I think Galvin's erratic. I think he's immature. He's got too many mistakes. He passes it too much. He just touches it and just he feels the need to overplay his hand. I personally, I don't get why they jumped at him. Like, especially with, say, Fogarty even. Fogarty was off the market this year. Off contract. They didn't really budget him. Manly jumped at that. I don't know. I don't think the Bulldogs can win the comp. I think their pack is a bit too small. I think they've got a few problems. They've put big money into Leo Thompson for next year, which I strange. I think they're paying him $800,000 next year, Leo Thompson.
Something about that figure.
They're just
big money.
Some odd calls. They're potentially a good team, but yeah, they can't score points. They've got a 78% completion rate for this year, which is the same as Melbourne. So, they chance their arm as much as Melbourne do, but how many more tries do Melbourne score?
627 points forward to 486. That's how many more tries.
And they're, on the same completion rate. So that, they're not doing much with the ball. I don't rate the Dogs. I don't think they can win.
I think you're harsh. Like, I really think you two are harsh. Like, you do agree. Like,
I've had them as contenders last week, by the way. Heads up, Wednesday live show.
They still are contenders. I can't look past a defense that is as good as that. And we know what happens in the finals. It is all about defense. And yeah, you got to put points on the board and do all that sort of thing, but it's less points come finals time. And it's all about defense, and teams are locked in. And that Bulldogs are just, are no doubt, the best defensive team in the competition. And I get that they're 9 points better off than the Storm at the moment, but that's only because the last few games have allowed a bit of points to come through. Like that 34 against the Roosters is a bit of an anomaly. Bulldogs don't normally let that happen. I can't write them off. You just can't write them off at the moment when you've got a defense like they have.
3 weeks ago, they let in 28 points against the Tigers as well, though.
Yeah,
like I get the defensive thing, but it's slowly creeping into their. There's a chink in their armor at the moment around defense. They're starting to let in a few points. They've done it 28 and 32 in the last 3 weeks is pretty decent in my opinion. So
I think they're just very susceptible to a power game. The Roosters demolished, like Nafahu White just runs through them. Yep. Angus Crichton just so aggressive. Like that sort of team is going to worry a team like the Dogs. That Max King, he's not. He's a good player, but he's just not like punching through the line. He's not bending the line. As much as some of these other teams have. Like Tui for Melbourne. They've got some big forwards. Payne Haas. That people that can bend the line and you get on the ad line and actually play some footy and score points off that. That's how you score. So.
Maxi King hasn't really leapt on since Origin, has he? It's sort of been a...
He ran for like 50 metres or something last week.
Yeah. Hasn't been a good little period for Maxi King, unfortunately. Just on Galvin, and just to avoid everyone going, "Oh, you're haters." Like I absolutely respect Galvin. I think he's got a ridiculously bright future. I think no one here can deny that.
No.
What I think the Bulldogs are stuffed up though, they've sort of panicked by here with Galvin, because Galvin's a 6 in my opinion still, and he's a very, very good 6. I had him last year. I think in his first year, I ranked him in the top 3. I think 5'8" in the game already after 1 year. Like he's a very, very good 5'8". Problem the Bulldogs have is their majority of their game is around Burton. When the Bulldogs play well, Matt Burton plays well. And he's shown in the past he's not a halfback either. So they sort of brought this guy who's fantastic future ahead of him. They want him to play halfback, which is not natural to him. He's not an organizer. He plays off the cuff. That's when he plays his best football. So don't put him straight into the side. Make him play at New South Wales Cup, even if it's for a majority of this year. Learn the trades of a halfback because he's young enough to do it. He can blood into that. Let Sexton do what Sexton was doing, which was working so well for the Bulldogs. It was exactly what they needed, that no-frills halfback who could just give the ball to Burton whenever he needed it, and away they go. It was working so well for him. And now it's just sort of been overcomplicated, and I just don't entirely get it. I just think, as I said, the Bulldogs panicked a little bit, seeing this guy was available, seeing that their cross-town rivals, the Eels, were basically going to sign him, and said, nah, we need this guy. We've got some money in the cap. Let's do it. And they sort of sat back now going, not quite happening how I thought it would happen. And to be honest with you, in cap wise, they probably could have kept Sexton for half of what they've got Galvin on, which could have been huge for them to improve other positions at their, especially that forward pack. And who knows what's happening with Connor Tracy, but he's doing a decent job there still at the back. So can't really do much to strengthen that unless you can go all out for a complete top 2 or 3 fullback in the game, which I don't think is going to happen. So it's just unfortunate. The other point here, and I find it interesting, the coach came out, Serrato, talking about picking players who aren't quite fit, things like that. Talking about Galvin, why would you push him at the moment with a clear hand issue that he has, an injury, and not quite fully fit? He's apparently had it full on strapped up. He was supposed to be out for a couple of weeks, which was the rumor early and now he's back playing. Why wouldn't you, if you're trying to win the competition this year, you want your players fully as fit as they can possibly get, rest him. Have the week or 2 off. Go, see you later. Go chill. We've got Sexton waiting in the wings. Give him a go. Give young Woods a go if you need to blood him for a little bit to see if he's quite ready for that leap. Let Galvin have that little rest. Don't coach him into going, you know what, let's overplay you while you're injured. That he could hurt his hand even further and he's out for the season. There's your main star playmaker all of a sudden, Gornsky. Like, I just don't get why you'd be pushing this guy, Matt. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, your guess is as good as mine. Honestly, when I seen this come up and we were going to talk about Galvin, I tried to think of reasons or possibilities, and I could only come up with 2. Is Serraldo trying to sort of toughen him up? You know, is he trying to say to the kid, you know, you're going to play hurt, and this is the NRL, this is what's required? Because I wouldn't imagine that Galvin was the only, you know, player running around with an injury. I get that it's his hand, and you know, it's very, you need him as a half, especially. But yeah, I cannot think of why, especially when, as you're saying, Sexton's there. He's done a job all year for him. You know, he's not a bad replacement. I don't know. It's a bit of a, it's a bit of a head scratcher, that one. No idea.
Yeah. Trav?
I don't have much, really. Like, he's looking like he's playing injured. You've got Sexton who's been able to do it. All I feel and all I can add to this is I just think that they're being very stubborn. I think they've decided that this is what it's going to be, and that they're stuck in their ways of being stubborn and don't want to just admit to making a mistake. Like, yeah, just admit it. Just, you've made a mistake. Like, you've brought him in too clear. We all know it's worked out a few times. There's been a few games he's played well and you guys have played well, but just admit a mistake and go back to your trenches of your blood for 2025 and just fix it. I think there's a few decisions.
Just say on Galvin quickly, like, I think it's a big mistake, you know, especially from his manager, to sort of be putting him in this position. He's really put himself in the spotlight and under immense pressure from the media. You know, I'm sure all the shows are talking about him. It's unneeded. He needed to just apply his trade, play against men, and, you know, just get used to the physicality of week in, week out rugby league at the top level. But yeah, he sort of put a target on his back now, and it just, he's put himself under pressure, and hopefully he's a player that can sort of bear with it, because a lot of players don't.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing I'll add to that is put Marnie back at hooker. He's your best hooker at the club. You play your best players. So Marnie needs to go back into that. I actually think they actually started to play better when he got on the field and started to play from the ruck, which I think was a funny little thing there. And I think the coach probably put a little bit of, oh shit, he's proved me wrong once again. And this is actually quite obvious, because me and Trav have just then admitted that we both noticed that. So one final little thing, I'm just going to be a little bit slap myself in the face, because I've said to the Dogs, stop moving and changing too much. I actually want to put forward a little change quickly that I actually do for this side. Little bit of one of those moments. Crichton's doing this little different role at the moment, where he's a fullback sort of in attack, and then defense he goes back to being in the center. But he's not in attack. There's also times where he's just back and he stays at center. Like, it's this really weird hybrid role that he's playing at the moment, which, to be fair, when he does do it, he kills it. And they got to try it very early when he was playing that role. And then it sort of slowly faded away. Crichton's their best player. I think we can all agree Crichton is the Bulldogs' best player almost by some way as well. Not disrespect any of the like Burton, that's a great player, but Crichton's that just really elite player on that list. I'm going to say right now, boys, I'd put him fullback. I would actually make the call and put him fullback, and I'd have Tracy play centre, who's done that before at the Sharks and actually was killing it at centre for the Sharkies when he was there. So I would make the play, because the way I'm looking at this right now is you want to win the comp this year, play your best players in their best position, and I actually think Crichton's best position for this Bulldogs side is fullback. I know this seems crazy. I've said to the dog, stop overcomplicating it, stop doing all this, but you've gone this hybrid role with him, so you're starting to try and you clearly think that he needs his hands on the ball more, which he does. The Dogs were stronger and look their strongest with his hands on the ball more. I'd do it, Trav. I'd call me crazy, but I'd do it.
Yeah, I think you're crazy. They can't do that now. Not at round 25. Like it just can't. And I get that he's been doing this hybrid role, and I understand it is a gun, but they had an opportunity to do it when Tracy was out for 2 weeks, and they didn't do it. They put Carraz there, and that stuffed Carraz up. So, like, yeah. But what I will agree with you is Stephen Crichton needs more than 7 runs and 50 meters. That's what I will agree with. He is a defensive machine. We know that. And attack is probably his lowest point, but he's not. When he is actually attacking, he's pretty bloody good. But he needs more than 7 runs and 50 meters. And if the Bulldogs are going to be any good and actually going to play well moving forward, it's off the back of him getting more than 7 runs and 50 meters. It's as simple as that. Like if you think, like you go back to previous games, like last week, he only had 9 runs for 78 meters, but they won by 18 points. To me, but against the Wars, it was against the Wars, injury depleted. I'm not liking what I'm seeing from Stephen Crichton in terms of that. I want to see the ball in his hands a lot more. And if that's somehow that's what they've got to do, then do it. But yeah, not this year. I don't think so.
Call me crazy, Matty. Go on.
I'm not going to call you crazy, I don't think. Hey, I don't hate it that much. I'd maybe look at maybe someone else except for Tracy, just because I think he's a little bit small. I know I don't want to be sort of biased on, body types and whatever, but Crichton's quite big and he does shore that edge up a little bit. Like when Crichton's out of there, that edge is quite weak. I'm pretty sure when they got flogged by the Dolphins was Origin time and that edge just got exposed a lot. Not to say I haven't watched that much of Tracy at centre, but they've still got Jamin Salmon. He played a fair bit of centre for Penrith, didn't he?
Yeah.
He
5'8" and
bit.
stuff. Yeah, he did a bit of everything. He's done He's been everywhere.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind maybe chucking him in, but then their forward pack's even weaker. I don't know. The Dogs.
Good luck with the Dogs.
He's not making the meters because their forwards can't really get forward that often. That's what I think. They're never playing on the ad line, and it's a bit hard.
Yeah. So what I've heard from Matt is he doesn't rate the Bulldogs, and they're not contenders anymore. Done.
I agree with what Matt has said. Actually, I'm doubling down with that. I actually don't think the Bulldogs are contenders either. So I reckon the Roosters are more contenders than the Bulldogs are. I'll say that.
Too. Yeah,
I think that. I'll tell you one side that isn't going to be struggling next year for backline talent and the way their backline is looking, and that's the Dolphins. It was a very fins down, unfortunately for them over the weekend, but I'll tell you what, their fins should be up for next year and beyond, and we're not going to get too much into next year, but it's hard not to be when you look at someone like Fuller who just got back, and luckily we got Matty on again because his first one he came and told us all the stats and said he wasn't quite himself at Queensland Cup at the moment, and it would have been a bit of a risk for the Dolphins to actually play him going off form. It didn't seem he hasn't quite back from his injury, but geez, he made a difference. I know the Dolphins lost in the end, but I think he made a really good difference. And I actually thought Hammer in centre actually had a decent game as well. His battle with Staggs was phenomenal. Staggs ended up winning by probably almost a points decision, I'd probably say, in that one. But Hammer held his own, and for a lot of that game was turning him inside out, which I really did like. But when you add their forwards who will be back and fit next year, and then you add this back line, my question for you boys is, would you leave Fuller at fullback moving forward? So for the remainder of this year and then starting next year, which means Fuller's fullback, Hammer and Farnworth would be your centers. And then I'd probably have I'd probably go. Who was my wingers the other day? I've had an absolute mind blank. I'd probably go Osako one wing, and then I would have Cobbo. Sorry. Yeah. Trav?
Oh, I was just saying you. I'm on record plenty of times saying that Fuller is the I was about to say the Miami Dolphins, NFL, the Dolphins fullback. I've said it heaps of times. I think what he did and how he provided for that team last year was just immense. And the only reason why I think he's not the fullback or hasn't been the fullback this year was because he did his knee. Matt's right. And like I said the stats a few weeks ago too, that Fuller's Q Cup form hasn't been great, but he deserved a shot just because of what he did last year. And he's been given that shot. And have a look what he did on the weekend. 257 meters off 21 runs is 7 tackle busts and a line break. That's fantastic. He's that guy. He is their guy. And I forgot that he got a try too, but he is that guy. It's as simple as that. And Hammer just looks so much more comfortable. I thought he looked so much more comfortable. The one thing that they miss that the Hammer provides is that rabbit around the ball that Hammer is, that he loves to be, like especially off a Herbie run, like whenever Herbie's on the run or whenever Osako's on the run, who's the dude beside him? Like whenever anyone is on the run, like who's there? Like Hammer's always there. And that's probably what they miss with Fuller, but it's got to be a different game style and they've got to play differently. But I really enjoyed the battle between Hammer and Stags. And I think for sure Fuller is their fullback. I think Hammer is their center. I think Herbie is the other center. And then you've got to make a decision as to whether you go Cobbo, Bostock, and Isako, and which two of that three goes in as the wingers. What a problem to have for the Dolphins.
Yeah, I can start to see now why there's those rumors around that Avril is getting shot, because at the moment, I don't think there's much room for him, unfortunately. And that just shows you the strength of that back line for next year. Absolutely ridiculous, because Avril has been one of their better players, I feel like, this year. He's actually gone under the radar a lot. I know Herbie and Hammer get all the raps at that side, especially attack-wise, but Avril has been right with them for a lot of those games, especially those games at 5'8".
Too.
Yeah, he was. He held his own for sure. Matty boy, obviously kept a close eye on Fuller's return so far. Was the weekend a surprise to you?
Yeah, I thought he came out real strong. I thought he was busy, and then I thought the start of the second half where the Dolphins really took control. He was really hovering around the ruck. He was busy right around the play the ball. Where he scored that try, I think that was deep in his own half, and it was just off that quick play. Caught Ben Hunt being a bit slow laterally and straight through. Yeah, he has to be the fullback. I got that wrong for sure. He was pretty impressive to watch. Yeah, you never know until you give someone a shot, I suppose. And yeah, he proved me wrong, and he looked really, really good. Yeah, their backline impressive for next year, and I was thinking Avarillo could stay, as a 5'8", even as another option at 5'8". He's played a bit of 5'8", but they've just signed Schneider as well, so they've boosted up their halves for next year as well. The Dolphins as a backup, yeah, and then they've still got Nicarima and obviously Katoa there, so good backup to have Schneider.
I'll tell you what, and I know you probably want to get some sort of Bronco chat in here after it was a great win, and Walsh was phenomenal. That was a fantastic performance by Walsh. But I'm an ultimate fanboy, this guy, Katoa. Some of those moments he had in this game, I know they lost, and he's just an absolute freak. Like, you go back, and sorry to go just back slightly, like they talk about Galvin and stuff, how there isn't that much sort of talk around Katoa at the moment. Like, I feel like Katoa's easily going to have the better career. Like, that could be controversial. I don't even feel like that's controversial, though. I just think that's obvious that Katoa is a freak. Like, he's playing as if he's prime Andrew Johns' mind in just this freakish body. Like, not just the ball playing and not just his kicking game. There was a couple of times where his step's starting to come out a bit. He's got a dangerous step on him. He's just becoming very quickly like one of the ultimate playmakers in our game. And he's still got plenty of years to improve before he reaches that peak of a playmaker age, which is just so scary. Like, we're talking about big money contracts and things like that. Surely Katoa's about to be lined up with one of the richest deals in the game. Has to.
Definitely.
Trav, I'll let you go. Sorry, Matt, go.
No, you're up. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, definitely. His battles against Sam Walker are going to be really intriguing, I think, throughout their careers. I rate Sam Walker and Katoa. Just on the game, I liked Walsh, but still some key mistakes. Kicking out on the full off the kickoff. We glaze over. I mean, it's a simple thing to kick it in. You're trying too hard, obviously, and it's just not needed. But we sort of gloss over a lot of the mistakes that he's making because they won well. I'd like to, you can't pull him back too much because that's what makes him so brilliant. He's got so many good skills. He just gets a bit too excited. Similar thing to what I'd say about Galvin. He just sort of pushes at that too much sometimes. He's a better player than Galvin, don't get me wrong, but the same sort of immature style of just pushing that pass instead of, all right, the play's dead, let's set for the next, where, Reynolds can sort of, and Hunt sort of pull him back a lot. I'd like to see him do that a bit more to Walsh.
We expected this though, didn't we? We knew without the two playmakers in their team, he would have to step up and do a lot more, which I think he did do. Like, I know what you're saying, but what I'll sort of say back on that is the fact that I actually think he held his own pretty well. Like, that kickoff is a bit of a massive pet hate for mine. I just don't get it, but he's not the only kicker that has done that.
For sure.
Yeah, I was actually, as a non Broncos fan, and to be honest with you, I was cheering the Dolphins just because I would like to see them play some finals football, which I think they'll struggle to do now, unfortunately. But yeah, Walsh actually really did impress me. And I've been I wouldn't say a Walsh hater, but I am pretty harsh on Walsh. I know what you're sort of saying with perhaps the mistakes come with Walsh. Like, I feel like if he's not making mistakes, he's not playing the game I probably want him to play.
I somewhat agree, but let me just take you back to Melbourne Storm last week. Walsh made the perfect break, did the play, had to just draw the fullback in and pass it, and he passed it about a mile forward. I don't know if you can recall exactly what I'm talking about. It's quite early on in the game. They're just sort of fundamentals that summing up a 2-on-1. You just got to get stuff like that right, and I'm sure he can. And I get what you're saying. He's a brilliant player, but just some of the things that you'd expect from a first-grade player, he just needs to nail some of those moments.
So I got a question for you, Matty.
Yeah.
Would you rather win or lose?
Well, I'd rather win. Yeah.
Okay, so without Walsh on the weekend, you don't win that game. Yeah, you did. You thought way too much about that. Without Walsh and what he did on the weekend, you don't win that game. Like, it's as simple as that. And there's many moments and games where without Walsh, you don't win those games. Like, you just have to take the good with the bad. And when the bad does happen, it makes a meme. We all have a laugh, and it is what it is. That's what we get from Walsh. But when it's the good, which I actually think far outweighs the bad, there is way more good than there is bad, but some of the bad is really bad, but we just got to live with it, and we just got to take it, and it is what it is. And that's the fun and enjoyment of having someone like him. And he's still a baby. Like, he's not he's not in his prime.
He is.
He's still young. He's still trying to figure it out. There are moments that he makes that you're right. That pass it against the Storm, when he did that, I was watching that just going, what are you doing, man? Like, that was a moment you overcomplicated, but that's also a moment that, and Joel said it really well, like, if Reece Walsh not having those moments kind of tells me that in that game that he's just going to disappear. He's not there. And that's what you don't want from Reece Walsh, because he does have those games. So I think you just got to be able to live with the good and the bad.
And I feel like I'll let Matt, you can have the last say. Just on the other thing with Walsh is the fact that the Dolphins got out to a really good lead. Like they got to a point where I actually thought the Dolphins were going to run away. And there was so many headlines that was going to be happening about the Broncos and what was happening. But Walsh went into that game probably knowing full well I'm the guy here. Like Ben Hunt hasn't just quite been it, unfortunately. He did a decent job, but he wasn't going to be the one that clawed you guys back to that victory. Got to the point there where Walsh is probably saying to himself, holy shit, we're down in the Battle of Brisbane against our little brothers that we like to put shit on constantly, call them Redcliffe, do all that sort of stuff. We need to win this game and prove we can play finals football to start with. And he was one that basically put his hand up and the moments all came off him. Like, yeah, there were some mistakes, but he was phenomenal. And for like being young, still having that pressure, like he's the golden boy there and everything was going to happen around him on the weekend to step up and to play that style of game. That was probably my most impressed I've been with Walsh for almost 2 years now. He was very, very good, I thought, on the weekend.
Yeah, no, he is brilliant. I guess maybe my issue is like I watched Brisbane in the Wayne Bennett era, you know, so it was not a lot of mistakes a lot of the time watching Brisbane play. I'd watch Brisbane play as a kid and Lockyer, even Special K at the back, you know, like we've had some great players.
Yeah, apples and oranges.
You know, I'd always expect us to win and just play the best. Like as soon as we're attacking, if we didn't score a try when I was a kid, I'd just be like, what the fuck is going on here? How did we not score? Because I'm just so used to that. And I don't know, it's just sort of just seeing a player that has all the ability, but yeah, we haven't won a grand final in ages, and it's just very frustrating as a Broncos fan sometimes.
I haven't won in ages. Be a Para fan, mate. Well, I keep comparing my teams to the 80s.
Yeah,
Talk about that. You got to sometimes just let go and realize we're 2025 now, and that was all a very long time ago. Talking about the Eels, unfortunately, some puzzling positional selections by Jason Riles. There was just a few positional things. Dylan Brown, I spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. I still just don't get the fact him at centre now 2 weeks in a row. Hasn't really done much at all in that time while we've still got players in reserve grade who have a future at the club, are contracted moving forward and not getting a go, which would mean they're in the future of the club. But anyway, Joash Papali, I should say, a lot being spoken about, and there's a lot of Para fans out there saying that he should be the 6 next year and pair up with Moses. I was happy with what Ryle said in terms of giving him a go this year to see if this partnership would work once Moses got back. I know he's been at fullback for the first for a few weeks now, and this was his first game at 6 with Moses, really. But even at fullback, I haven't seen much with his ball playing, which is virtually similar to a 6 pairing up with Moses to suggest to me he is the one moving forward. I keep seeing Sandon Smith there, not signed up yet. I would love the club to go after Sandon Smith and sign him up. The Eels at the moment have a bit of a war chest to play with next year. There is a fair bit of money there still to play with. So I'm very eager to see what happens here. I just hope the club isn't thinking Moses Papali is the way to go moving forward. I just don't think it is. I think Papali is a great player to have to verse with Iongi to match up with, and they push each other at fullback. And whenever whoever's in the form gets the fullback spot, I just don't see him as a 6. I just don't think. And the way I'm thinking about it as a Para fan, we've had a couple of years now that have been really poor years. Build a little bit this year. We can see some bright sparks starting to try and light into the future. I don't want to have another one of these building years for next year. I want to be a team that can actually challenge for the top 8. And I think with a nice couple of additions on the player market, we can do that. I don't think we can do that with that Haas pairing of Moses and Joash. I think there needs to be a bit of a change. Trav, what do you think at the moment, what you're seeing there? I think you've been quite positive with what you've seen from the Eels over the last few weeks. So I'm very interested to see what you thought. Even as a fan last night, it was a very tough watch.
It was more than a tough watch. It was not enjoyable and almost as bad as watching today's game. I think the Eels should be embarrassed to have lost that game, to be fair. And Joel, I know you tipped them, but you tipped them because you tipped the Rabbitohs, but you tipped them knowing, with the thought that Latrell Mitchell was playing, and then he was kind of a late scratching, and then off you went. Like, and the Rabbitohs deserve to win. They played well, and Jai Gray's a freak. But I just have to laugh. I'm laughing at you right now in terms of, and I'm not being rude, but I'm just laughing at some of you Eels people because the last few weeks I've been incredibly positive, and I actually still am really positive with the Eels and the way that they're playing. But 1 minute you guys are going, oh, we've got our franchise 5'8". Josh Papali's a freak, like we love him. And then he plays one bad game, as you would expect as an 18-year-old. And now you're like, yeah, get the ass. We've got a war chest. Where's our money? Let's find it. We need to spend. Like, it's, come on now. Like, you have to, we just sat there talking up Reece Walsh around, we've got to take the good with the bad. And yet you can't take the good and the bad with an 18-year-old. Like, I just think you've got to be settled. I think you've got to settle down. I think you found your fullback. I only turned up on the weekend. He was pretty good and got a try assist in 200 meters. Like, there's your fullback. I don't think Joash Papali has a spot, to be fair. I think he needs to go. I think you need to find somewhere else if you're not going to play him at 5'8", like you've all been talking about. If you're going to go spend some money, find that where you got to. I actually think you've got bigger problems, and your bigger problem is your pack. Like, your pack is horrible. I'm sorry to say it, but they are. I love the unearth of Jack Williams. I've spoken nothing but positive all year. Jack Williams is I think he's a captain material, man. Like, I just love watching the way he goes about it. I love his grit and his mentality. But yeah, like, I think you just got to settle down. I'm sorry. But you just got to take some of the good with the bad with a kid like Joash Papali. And 1 minute you can't say he's our future, and then say after a bad game he's not. Like, however, I do also go, what the hell are you doing with Dylan Brown? Like, well, why? That makes no sense to me.
Doesn't make any sense to me either. Matt, I'll get your take.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at their list. If you weren't have Papali playing 5'8", and say you couldn't buy a 5'8", say there wasn't one, do you hate Dylan Walker playing there?
Yes.
You
he
hate
has
that?
too much in our pack now. He's a forward. He's a lock.
Yeah. No, I see that as well. I don't know. They've got a few things like
There's a guy called Lorenzo. He's a very bright future player in the lower grades at the moment, who is apparently the future of the Eels. But I don't think rushing him in next year is the answer. The other reason for me saying Sandon Smith is that he's a proven first grader. He's been there, done it before. I think he would help Moses out a lot. And I'd look, even if it has to be a year or two's contract, just to help establish the Joashes, the Lorenzos, and go for there. I wouldn't go all in on Footy Dean either. There's been a few people that sort of come back to me and said, oh, Dean Hawkins, him and Moses together would be okay. I don't really like that. Dean Hawkins was signed up as a backup half for Moses when he's down. I feel like it has to only be one of those on the field at the same time. I think they can sort of be a bit too much to each other. So I'd like a more established 5'8" who can play 5'8" as that player.
That role, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, Moses can really take a lot of the role on in the halves. Like, he can do 90% of the kicking. He can do pretty much everything. I think it probably depends on your hooker, who you play at hooker. If you've got a kicking option, a kicking threat out of dummy half, just for a bit of variation, and you wouldn't have to heap a bunch of pressure on one of these young halves coming in. You can slowly sort of blood them, and a simple game plan, either run or give the ball early. Just a nice simple game plan. Get them used to the rigors of NRL, and who knows what one of these players might be.
Yeah, no, very fair. And Trav, your point's 100%. And I said it all year. Our pack isn't up to it at the moment. And there's many out there who think, oh, it's a youngish pack. They'll move. They'll keep going. I think we need at least 2 signings in the pack to really become a decent enough forward pack to be challenging for finals football next year. And I just think that should be the plan for the club moving forward. A team that won't be playing finals football this year, Manly. The Manly Sea Eagles have just gone absolutely down the blurter. And Anthony Seibold appears to be pressure gauge wise pretty in the, I'd probably say, green for majority of people out there. Hasn't really been spoken about too much. In my opinion, though, I've got him in the red. I've got him in the red hot red as well. I'm shocked that there's not much, there's not extra pressure on him, and there's not much being said in the media over the last few weeks. He seems to have gone under the radar a lot, obviously with Des and Payton and things like that. Seibold, with the roster that he's got there and for what he's been able to, and like over the last few weeks, they've been playing for essentially their season, and they've put in some of the worst performances they have all year. Like that, to me, speaks all that needs to be said here in the terms of Seibold's not going to be able to get the best out of this team. He's not going to be able to deliver them a premiership, which should be every club's main goal, eventually being with that coach. So why keep this going? Why go into another year with Anthony Seibold when it clearly won't work? I just think it's time to cut ties. I think get him out, move on. There's a number of coaches out there probably ready to go. What are we thinking, Matt? Anthony Seibold's pressure gauge, where you got him at?
I cut him probably a tiny bit more slack than you. I probably have him, if you've got him in red and everyone's got him in green, I'm probably more in the yellow. I'd probably say somewhere in the middle. I think the Daly Cherry Evans factor this year has really hurt Manly. He's sort of, I remember when he came in, he took more money, he got offside with a lot of the original Manly boys. He seems to have, not that he's abrasive, but he could have that personality as well when it, suits him for the money or, if it's under his terms. The Trebojeviches, so Jake, he looks a bit past it for mine. I don't know how much money he's getting paid, but, there's some money there. Mount Paseka, big Paseka, he's been injured this year. But yeah, Seibold, looking at his thing, at his education, I suppose. He's got a Master's of Education. He's got a bachelor's degree. He's got another 4 degrees. I used to listen to a podcast with a guy named Brock Shepherd that he coaches down at Canberra at the moment. And he did a lot of courses with Anthony Seibold, and he spoke really high of him in terms of his intelligence and just the sort of nous he has for the game. So, he's been assistant coach at Melbourne Storm. He was there with English rugby when Eddie Jones was there. So he's surrounded himself with some, pretty smart people across a lot of different codes. And with a better roster, he could do better. He made a prelim his first year with granted a really good roster at South, but I think he has potential.
He what you're saying, it's sort of, I translate it to, he's book smart, but has he got street smarts? Has he got rugby league street smarts? And from what I've seen so far, and I just don't think he quite does. I think he's put a lot of the teams so far, he's had the chance of coaching offside, and that can quickly catch up with you. And I don't know, Trav, what are you thinking about this one? I might be too harsh. It seems like I might be, but I'll be on the radar now. I've never rated Seibold. I just don't really get his coaching style. I don't really think he's a great coach at all. And I think there's many others out there that are better than him that aren't coaching at the moment, which I find very puzzling. So I'm just surprised that Manly seems so content with having Seibold at the reins at the moment when it just looks like things are completely falling apart.
You can have all the degrees in the world, and you can be as smart as you got. I mean, clearly he's obviously got time to go and do the degrees while he's coaching, and his focus is obviously on his coaching because, he's got 4 degrees and is an incredibly smart person having some incredibly smart conversations, yet his record is 27 games, 17 wins, 10 losses at Souths. His record's 40 games, 14 wins, 25 losses at the Broncos, and his record's 71 games, 34 and 35 at Manly. Come on now. Your record's not winning for you. So what this speaks to me is I like what you said there, Joel. I like that, book smarts, but you don't have rugby smarts. What this tells me is that he's actually an assistant coach more than anything. If he's that smart and he's that good, he can go and help someone else because clearly he doesn't have the coaching record to show that he's a very good head coach, in my opinion. And I'm feeling like I'm being harsh, and I think I am because I've watched the way it is. You call out the DCE stuff. yeah, okay, that's annoying. That's a blip in the situation. He did it in the first month. They've had to live it. What's the coach's job? The coach's job is to go, all right, well, this is the makeup of the NRL. This is what happens in the competition. Players can announce whenever they leave at any time. My job is to keep the track going and keep the boys on par, and he hasn't. And they've turned into a train wreck. It's literally a train wreck. Now, what's the pressure gauge? Well, the pressure gauge at the moment is nothing, but it should be at friggin' boiling point, man. It should be like the old school camping kettle that's sitting there on the, and it's telling you now it's time to take me off, and it's friggin' spitting. Like that's what it should be, because that roster is actually a very good roster. That there is class across the park, but I can't legitimately look at that list and pick more than 3 guys that have had some serious improvement this year. One of them's Bullimore, and they've locked him in. Bullimore's been awesome. I've loved what I've watched. The other one is Hopewadi, and I don't think they've set him up for success, but he's managed to be able to have some improvement and had some serious stance. And yeah, I'm really disappointed with what he's got. And I picked that team to be in the top 4 this year. I really thought they were contenders, legitimate contenders at the start of the year, and they have been nothing but a train wreck. And I'm going to put it down to Seibold. I'm not going to put it on DC or anything like that, because that's just the makeup of the NRL. And I get that he's the captain, and I get all that sort of stuff, but this is what it is. This is our day and age. So they've got to be able to live through this, and the coach's job is to fix that.
I'll let you fire back, mate. Just quickly, that's one of the harshest Trav's ever been on this podcast. That's big. He normally doesn't go to those lengths. So that was a big one from him.
I say look at the Manly pack. Matt Lodge, he's not really up to standard. Is Josh Aloiai still there? I think he's retiring at the end of the year, or maybe immediately, but he's not up to scratch. Paseka's been injured. He's one of their good forwards. He's been injured for a long part of the year. I just think that, yeah, you can look at that. I don't. His record isn't good at Brisbane. The team wasn't exactly great at Brisbane at the time. They still had Haas and Carrigan, but Reynolds, when he came in, that's what sort of changed it. But, look at someone like Nathan Brown's coaching record. That's probably 38%. You're not going to say he's a shit coach. I think that stats are very much like matches. They're dangerous in the wrong hands. We've got to think that Seibold is working with a shit roster, and I get that he hasn't ever had big success before, and that's why we're sort of looking at it this harsh, I guess, is probably, he hasn't won a comp, but he has made prelims. Like a lot of coaches haven't done that even, that are even in the NRL. Like, I don't know. I'd like to see him with a good team. I don't think
he has one now. Like this is the point. He has one now. Like, you look at that across the park. Okay, so today they lost Ruben Garrick in the first few minutes, or the first 20 odd minutes. But if you look across the park, that like Trebojevic, Saab, Kohler, Hopewadi, Simpkin's not a bad hooker. Takiaho is pretty good. Like Burbo, Jazz Tavanga, like Sipley off the bench. Bullimore comes on for 50. Like, it is a good team. It is a good team.
Yeah. If it was 2020 Turb, like we're saying Trebojevic, and it carries a strong name, but he hasn't been quite the player that, were those heights where he was Dally M after playing 14 games in a year. I watch Trebojevic a lot now, and it just seems in contact he's, seems a bit hampered a lot of the time, which I'm sure you are seeing the same thing. And it's not always the same spots, his shoulders, hammies, ankles. He's just become very injury prone, and it's hurt his career a lot.
He was poor today, and I actually think DCE chased the game. DCE was actually pretty good today. Yep. In terms of Seibold, he's been at Manly now since 2023. So this is his third year coming into. So he's essentially now at the third year. Most coaches say they've got the roster that they want. So you talk about the forwards and things like that. He's been in charge of recruiting and retention there, and these are apparently the forwards that he wants at this club. Now, I've said this in the past this year, and this isn't a bash on Manly, but I'd say players like Paseka and Aloiai aren't top 10 props in the game, maybe even stretching to be top 15 props in the game. Like, I think Paseka has the odd decent game in him, but more
got
so
more
than not,
potential,
he doesn't
yeah.
really stand out. And he's been around for a while now. These are all players that Seibold's re-signed and said, "Yeah, I can do something here at this club." They've got potential galore in this. I was with Trav. I had Manly in the top 4 this year, and I thought they were in for a hell of a year, and that was with or without a fully fit. So obviously that would have helped him. And I think I said at the time they were in their best shape possible now to be, if Turbo was to go down long term, to replace that. They had Hopper Whitey, they had Cooler, they had players, Garrick. They had 3 legitimate options who can play a decent game at fullback to overcome that injury. And I and Trav pointed him out earlier, like I've actually been a bit concerned with what I've seen from Hopper the last probably month and a half of football. I think he's gone down a bit. That time at fullback didn't quite work with him, and I know that was a Seibold move to make. So there's just a lot of things happening at the moment. And like I go back to, they had the last 2 weeks where they're essentially playing for their season, and to put in their 2 probably worst performances of the year, I think just sums it up. I think that shows you that you might be able to be a really good X's and O coach, but you're clearly not getting the best out of your players on a mental level and getting their bodies and then they're ready for the battle. Like, they shouldn't have lost today. Like, I know the Tigers are improving, but they're not playing for their, like, yes, there's this weird chance that they can make the finals, but Manly were a much more realistic chance of happening. They scored in the first set. Then post that, they didn't look like scoring again until the last set of the game. Like, it was just one of those games for Manly. It was just, I don't get it. I really don't get it. I think that goes down to Seibold. I really do. I just think moving on and going into a different chance for Manly. And the last point about all this is the fact that Josh Hannay still hasn't been signed by anyone. There's a lot of talk that it could be the Cowboys, and that's a very likely chance to happen. But mate, at the same time, while he's a chance to go to your club, and these clubs are struggling with coaches, I'd like, if I was Manly, I'd be on the phone in the morning going, "Josh, what's it take to get you here? What would it take us to get you at the club tomorrow?" Like, and jump at the chance. Like, we've talked about it all episode. We've talked about it in the last few weeks. It's these players or these coaches that just aren't quite doing the job, and these teams are just sort of plodding along, and they don't like they'll do much for the next couple of years. Make the leap, take the leap now, and jump on board Josh Hannay to really get there and get your team to where it potentially could be.
Agreed. I've heard that they want Mick Ennis.
Yeah.
How freaking weird's that? He hasn't. He's had no apprenticeship. He's their hooker halves coach at the moment at Manly. Oh, yeah, he's a good player, but I don't know. Good analyst.
And they want to keep Seibold on as a potential coaching head of coaching or something, which
Director
is just
some
stupid in
shit.
itself.
Yeah.
Head of football, which would just be, once they sack him, get him out of the club would be the best way to go about
it's
that.
An odd thing, eh? Like, if you're going to sack someone, don't find them another role. Just get rid of them and let him go and do something at some other club. Like, that just makes no sense. Yeah.
Alrighty, that's it. We've had a massive show. I hope you've all enjoyed a longer version of this tonight. Didn't quite anticipate. I'll go back to the drawing board myself and work out just how much to put into these shows, because clearly it was too loaded. Let us know your thoughts on any of the big topics we've spoken about tonight. But thanks, boys, for sticking around for this one. It's been a big one. Matty boy, thank you. Trav, thank you. We'll see you all throughout the week. Obviously, Supercoach, plenty to talk about there. Some big moves and shakes, and then the Wednesday live show as well. Thank you very much. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. Shout out Sava Sports and message page if you want any of the merch. And then big shout out to Caxton Street Brewing Company, our major sponsor. Good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.